everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Abundant Thinking. Today, we have a very special episode, a little bit different, if you guys can tell by me getting my haircut. So, I'm joined here today by Larry Walker. Larry, say hi.
What's up, guys?
And today, we are going to have a little bit of a special episode. So, I've known Larry for about 2 years now. I'm going to talk a little bit about his barbering journey here in a second, but we've always had amazing conversations, and this has been long overdue. So he's going to cut my hair today. He's going to bless me. And not only are you guys going to get to see his amazing work, but you're going to join us for another one of our amazing conversations. So I knew Larry. I'm currently a junior in college, and I've known Larry since I was a freshman. And he was cutting hair in his frat basement when he was coming up. And fast forward now, he's charging premium prices. He's got over 15,000 followers on social media. Just to give you guys a quick intro, he's been a personal friend of mine for over 2 years. I couldn't be more proud of him. And he's also somebody that is very like-minded. So, I've been doing my podcast for a little over 2 years as well. And it's been kind of hard to find people around my age that think similarly, at least, both mindset, but also maybe things they want out of life. So I think this is going to be a good opportunity, not only to look back, but also for you guys to see how two 20, 21-year-olds not only think about their life, things that they're going through, but also, I guess, be able to look back on it a couple of years and be like, dang, like, this is kind of cool that they did this thing. So, I've known each other for 2 years. You've been cutting my hair. What initially got you into barbering?
What got me into barbering was I experienced my fifth major concussion my sophomore year of high school. And going through this, I was down and out. I was barely able to make it to school consistently. I only went to one class in person my junior year of high school. And once I got recovered enough from this concussion to just be able to function day to day, I started to want to make money. But I also knew with my head issues, I wasn't going to be a reliable employee anywhere. And in knowing this, I knew I had to do something where I could be my own boss and create my own schedule. And I've been watching barber videos since middle school. That's what I found satisfying. That's what I found as entertainment. So I decided to pick up the clippers one day after a video of my friend got sent in our group chat of him getting his hair cut by some guys on the football team at their practice. And they completely botched his haircut. But what that did for me was it showed me I had somebody close to me that didn't care that much about his hair. So I got him, and I convinced two other buddies to let me practice on their hair. And that was the start of it for me, was cutting these three guys back in my hometown, watching YouTube tutorials and trying my best on each haircut. And those haircuts took me like 3 hours or more because the mentality I had was that I always wanted to give it my best. I didn't want the client to get out of the chair, and I knew in the back of my mind I could make sure before they got up and left that I gave it my 100% all on that cut. And that's the mentality I carry today.
Dude, I love it. That's such a good answer. I was going to say, given the gap, as you talked about, first of all, what got you into barbering? You said you were cutting your buddy's hair, didn't care about the haircuts. So I know it's a lot of time to fast track to, but fast track to today, I'll kind of spoil it for the audience. But, you're charging premium prices, clients. And I also think people are paying you for a service that most people think is an unbelievable price point. So it's interesting that you've been able to provide so much value for people.
Yeah.
So you're charging $100 a cut. And, most people get their haircut for like $30, 40, 50 maybe. But every time I tell one of my friends that, you cut hair for $100, people are like, oh my God. So you started out with your concussions, you're having a hard time. You knew that you wanted to make your own schedule, and this was a hobby at this point. But how did you get it? What's that transition between first starting it out as a hobby and now being so good at it and charging such high prices that people feel like they're getting such a good experience out of it?
I think you said it right there. Experience. I look at it as much more than a haircut. If somebody sees it as just a haircut, that's not my type of client or person I'm trying to attract. An overall experience for the client. And the way I make them feel through conversation, the way their confidence is spiked after a clean haircut, that they know is consistent. They don't have to come into the shop being anxious, questioning whether they're going to get a good haircut today or not. And it goes far beyond just a haircut. for the service I provide. I try to dive deep to understand each client I have. And ultimately, in the back of my mind, to God to help me serve those clients and figuring out how can I serve them in this 1 hour today. The big shift for me, though, mentally, was when I invested into my first mentorship program. I invested $7,000 into this mentorship program that was supposed to help barbers grow on social media and use that to grow their business demand. This was the scariest jump I've ever taken. It was a huge risk. I spent all of my savings on it. But with this mentorship, completely shifted my perspective of what was possible if you leverage social media as a barber. So after that, I realized what was possible. I was having conversations with barbers that were making doctor money. And that alone gave me enough confidence that I could do it myself if these guys were doing it too. So I made social media a focal point. And seeing what these other barbers were able to do by creating content and marketing themselves in this way just completely changed my perspective.
Yeah, that's, I mean, to say that's impressive is an understatement. I think I've seen a lot of people do barbering as a hobby, right? I had one of my friends back at home. He used to cut me. He charged $20 for just starting out. It's so cool to see what you've done, how you've turned this into something that's just extraordinary. Like, I mean, charging $100 for a haircut, providing the service, and seeing you go through the whole process has just been such an amazing like route up. And I'm very excited to see what your future holds. So I know it's gonna be great things. How can you convince more people to take that scary jump without them really knowing if it's ever gonna work out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And truthfully, it is a scary decision. It's a scary jump. Like, I was terrified. So the fact is, it is scary. But what I knew was I wasn't in the position I wanted to be in. So I obviously didn't know enough. And the mentorship, what that did for me was I was paying for access to people that knew what it took to make it happen because they had the results. They had the credibility that they did it. So just being willing to learn. And also, I knew the route I was on wasn't getting me there. And I'm not a fan of settling for plan B. Like, I want to go all in on plan A and make it happen and try again until plan A works. And that's kind of the mentality I took into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's tough to say because so many people are in so many different circumstances in life, but it really is one of those things where, like, for me, well, I'll even tell you this, like, something that I've been struggling with a lot recently is I've got the podcast, I've got the book, for example, right? And I guess if you look at it from a long-term horizon, it's like I'm on, I guess you could say, the right path. Got college going for me, but I'm really taking the time to invest in myself because that's one thing I really believe in is this, like you as a person. I've had a lot of conversations about this with my friends, and this might be a little bit of a selfish take on something, but I love doing things for my friends, especially if I care about them. But the thing is, and the reality is, in life, there are moments to where it's just you. If you're getting a job, it doesn't really matter if you helped or did a good deed for somebody else, right? And I'm saying, this could definitely come back at you. And I see this as an example all the time. Like I have guests on my podcast, and then they do things for me in the future just out of goodwill. So, but I think you have to do things for yourself. And that's one thing where it's like for me, this podcast, this book, it was all something I was doing for myself to help build the skills that I believe are going to help me in the future. But for you, who's been able to really monetize what they're doing and get paid, you know, good for not only the service that you're providing, especially when you're comparing it to the normal person, but also in general, like for a 20, 21-year old, you're doing very well for yourself, right? You should be very proud of yourself.
Thank you, bro.
But I think one of the things for me that I don't know if insecurity is the right word, but something that really scares me is seeing the fact that right now it's not about the money for me is tough because, like, for example, I even had a lecture on this for one of my classes today, but we're talking about like monthly expenses. And I was like, okay, the average monthly expense for a car, for example, we're talking about it, like the average it out, it's like $500. And for me, it's like the work that I've done hasn't produced me that much money. And I've had guests on my show tell me a lot of different things that have been very helpful for me, especially like right now, my KPI, like my key point indicator, is not about revenue. It's really tough to see the fact that I'm about to enter. So I'm 21 years old, just for reference, junior in college. I'm about to enter the big, the big, scary real world, right? And I'm really trying everything I can to make something work, right? And the fact that it's not about money right now is scaring me that maybe in the future I won't be able to make enough money to do what I truly want. And I'll be stuck doing something I truly hate, and this kind of things I love versus what I hate. I love talking to people. I love, doing everything with my book, but more specifically for hate, I really don't like when other people are responsible for me, when I have to report to somebody else, like a manager, for example. And I hear a lot of people my age talk about this, but they do it just because they kind of see, they don't see the effort that it takes. They kind of just want the rewards as fast as possible. So something that I've been having a really hard time with is seeing, okay, like seeing my book sales come in and it's not as much, and seeing the fact that with my podcast, it's not like I'm going out for sponsors or making money for the people I'm talking to, and kind of trusting my process, if that makes sense. As far as seeing how the process unfolded for you, right? Like right now you're charging others, but there was a time where you were charging $20, $30, and even you were doing it for free in the beginning, right? How did you just trust the process that it was all going to pan out for you?
That's a great question. The only answer I can think of is my faith in God, because I've spent a lot of time trying to control my circumstances, trying to control my outcomes. And through control, you can create a successful life, but that doesn't mean it's going to be filled with peace or joy. I think I very similar, I had very similar thoughts as you of being afraid of not being able to provide. I still have these thoughts in the back of my mind. I have a fear of being average. I don't want to be an average man. I have a fear of being insignificant. And ultimately, as I've dove deeper into my mind about this topic, I realized I just had a belief. I had a belief I wasn't lovable unless I was impressive. So I had to grind. I had to make all these things happen out of fear of becoming a certain type of man. So I was running from becoming that certain type of man, where I was able to make great progress, hit my goals, and all the amazing things that I'm beyond grateful for. But even after doing all of that, I still didn't have the peace and the freedom I thought I was going to get once all these goals were checked. And that was a harsh reality I honestly just went through. Did I answer that?
I think it's tough for me as well. I guess everybody our age, like it's tough to say that me and you are the only people going through this, right? I think this is a very normal struggle that people have. I will also say that I think when you try to take your life into control and work hard at it, maybe a certain part of you is insecure and drives you to become successful from whatever metric you want to. Something I've been thinking a lot about is a lot of the results that I've gotten in my life, I think, have been because of insecurity. And I think I've gotten a lot more comfortable saying that because before it'd be a lot harder for me. And I think when you're currently going through something like insecurity, you don't want to talk about it too much, but then when you overcome it, it's easier for you to admit that it was. But I think even right now, something that I'm having a hard time with, where it's like it's hard to know what everything holds. It's hard to know what's going to happen. So the insecurity of maybe not being enough maybe pushes you for more. That's kind of how I think. Like for me, I think the only reason that I've been able to do this podcast every week for over 2 years, and the reason I was able to write this book is because I have this vision in my mind that's so terrifying. That's like, I spend the rest of my life, whether it's working for somebody I don't like, or just living a life I think altogether that I hate. And that's one notion that, again, we might look back on this a couple of years from now. I don't think this is stupid, but that's something that I don't believe in, is the idea that like everybody tells me at this age, like right now you got to go have fun, you got to enjoy yourself just because in the future you're going to be working, doing all these things. But the way that I think about it is if there's even the slightest amount of chance that I can work my ass off right now while being in college, sacrifice, like, listen, I have my phone, I hang out with my friends, right? But there are times where it's like, I have to do my podcast, I have to do these things, especially during the week as well. Like, I have so many conflicting things that I can't attend to because I have to set up some automation. I have to do this thing with my book. I have to promote, I don't know, to libraries, et cetera, whatever it is. It makes it like drive you the insecurity. And I'm kind of going in circles here, but I know that's something that you can attest to. Like, do you think that when you were going through something uncertain, do you think the insecurity of you not becoming who you want to be drives you to at least be on the track to be that person?
Well, for sure. That's what fuels me. That's what makes it easier to stay disciplined, is keeping that in the back of my mind, that it's a fear that I turn into fuel, which is a good thing, but it can very well be a bad thing at the same time. I like where you were going with the fact of like sacrificing or like you're working on your automations, stuff like that. Whenever you could be going out and having fun, and there's people around you that are probably going out and having fun, and the thoughts can go through your mind of, oh, I'm missing out and experiencing FOMO. That's the same thing I was going through when I just put my mind onto trying to grow my barber business and fixated on that. I sacrificed hanging out with friends. All I did was work. I sacrificed relationships where I'm sacrificing relationships isn't something I should be doing because that's the point of life, connection. But I also believe that that sacrifice I made for a couple of years is what got me to where I'm at now. So it was a give and a take. And I think everything in life's a give and a take. You have to count the opportunity cost for whatever path you choose, but there's always going to be a hidden cost, no matter what you choose. Because if you choose to go have fun and enjoy the party or the get togethers or all this fun time with your friends, that isn't very productive. You're fulfilled with relationships, but then you could be going into work 9 to 5, being told when you can work, when you can take breaks, when you can take vacation, ultimately keeping you a slave. So I also think it's very important to find a way to build that freedom for yourself so you can spend time with the people you love.
How do you think you having or you the opportunity to make your own schedule helps you be more successful, if in any way?
That's a great question. I would say now, more recently, it's been more prevalent and I've been more clear on this. But with being able to work less hours but maintain my income as I've raised prices, it's allowed more balance in my life. Ultimately, I was grinding head down, sacrifice time with people around me to get to where I'm at. Now that I'm there to what I was aiming for, I can now set time out of my schedule because I don't have to cut hair at certain times of the day or on certain days. I can choose when I work. And that frees me up to be able to spend time with family, friends, my girlfriend, instead of having to be at work grinding just to pay the bills, and being able to be recharged and fulfilled with relationships in my life while still maintaining the income I'm aiming for has allowed me to be more well-rounded and balanced, because now it's not just success in business and finances, it's success all around emotionally and relationally. And that's been the biggest blessing.
A little bit earlier, you talked about how you spent time sacrificing your relationships, and you got to the point where you realized that relationships are kind of the point of life, right? To be able to connect with other people. Do you think in order to get to the next stage of life, it could mean making a sacrifice to your relationships? And also on top of that, do you think that it's important to sacrifice the relationships that weren't going to stick with you long term to begin with?
That's another good question. Truthfully, for me, I think making that sacrifice was necessary. I don't think I would be where I'm at if I didn't make that sacrifice. But I also don't want to be small minded and assume everybody has to. I think people can be balanced overall and understand the emotional and relational part of it and be able to maintain relationships throughout grinding. For me, I just didn't have that awareness into the emotional and relational part of the world. That's something I've learned, honestly, within the last few months. So for me, sacrifice was necessary and I wouldn't change it because I am where I'm at. But I don't think everybody has to not talk to the people they love or care about just to get to a successful point. Because then the question is, what is success? Because to me, where I'm at now, I think success is having loving people around you and getting to love people and understand people. That's success to me now. But I also think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people, because bad company corrupts good character, and you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around.
I love
So I couldn't hang around the guys I was hanging around when I was complacent, comfortable. I was partying. I had to isolate myself. And truthfully, I didn't have anybody around me that was wired the same way. At least I didn't think I did, that was pursuing the same path. And that's what led me into the mentorship. I had to pay to get around a group of guys that had the same passion for barbering as me, but also wanted more for their life. And they knew there was much more to barbering than the average barber that's working 9 to 5, staying after hours, make a little extra cash, charging 40, $50 a haircut. Like, being surrounded by guys that think bigger pushes you to think bigger.
I think that's one of the beauties of life is the fact that people kind of have their own thing going. I think that you talked about the idea that some people didn't make sacrifices and some people don't, and I couldn't agree more. Especially people having this podcast tend to be a lot more ambitious. And I talk to the top 1% of people. So the way they think, the way they act is kind of something I get used to. But I think it's a really good point you bring up that there are a lot of people that they kind of do just want to like find a good job, find a good culture, and find a company that supports them. And that's something that, especially being in the position that I'm in, I'm not around too much. Kind of to add on to that, you mentioned the idea of you had to surround yourself with people who thought bigger in order for you to think bigger, which I think is such an interesting idea. And I couldn't agree more with. I think it's crazy to think it's making sense in my head, but you see life a certain way until somebody can come in and make you see life completely different from like a more zoomed out view for you to be like, okay, you're thinking about tomorrow, but think about what you can achieve in 10 years, let's say, right? Which I think is super interesting. I think one thing that you mentioned that made me think of this is remember when I was first starting out, the hardest thing was the embarrassment. The like, okay, you're making social media clips, you're making podcasts, and you have absolutely zero proof, right? I think the more that I was comfortable being myself and being okay with other people seeing me be myself, the more people I found that were like-minded. Like example, so I'm in a business fraternity, and every single semester we have new members that join. They have to go through like an 8-week process where they have to answer quizzes, like all this stuff, right? One of the things that I want to do, so my role this one semester was I was responsible for helping these 40 kids get through the whole process. And the thing I wanted to do most was make them think differently. So we had like a leadership workshop. And the first thing I said is, just because you have a big position doesn't mean you're this big fancy guy. You're the same as everybody. We all have the same roles. Well, but on top of that, when people kind of saw that I had a podcast, so I was okay telling people I'm writing a book. The people that would originally make fun of me don't say anything about it. But you notice that the people that are waiting for, I'm not going to say approval, but they're waiting to see that one person come out of the dark just to speak to are all around you. And what I mean by this is I talked to so many people that semester that were saying, oh my God, it's so cool you're doing a podcast. And we had such good, deep and meaningful conversations about both my podcast, my book, about their life. And it only happened because I was not afraid to, I guess, put myself out there. So I was even going to ask you, do you think as somebody who's got, over 15,000 followers on Instagram, the more that you put yourself out there and got comfortable, I guess, being good in your skin, did you tend to find more people that were like-minded, or did you have a different experience?
I would definitely agree. The more I was authentic, the more I put myself out there, marketed myself, I found people that saw the world similar to me. The more I marketed, the more I put myself out there, the more authentic I was. The more people that were similar minded as me, they started to come closer my way. They were drawn towards the authenticity. Yeah, I would definitely say that they wanted to support me, especially as I raised my prices to a premium price of charging $100. Not everybody would pay that. Not everybody sees the value in that. But there's a certain type of person I'm trying to attract. And now I stand out by being such a premium charging barber. And the people that value the experience over just a haircut, they value the consistency and the relational side of the business. There's a lot of barbers out there that aren't going to dive deep relationally with their clients, that aren't going to check in on them after the haircut. That's something I pride myself on, is I check in with every client after the cut because I want to build a relationship. It's not a transaction. And when people experience that, they want to support more. The more I'm open about my faith and try and have my business be centered on God, I attract people that are in their faith because whether they are admired or inspired and motivated to be more public about their faith, overall, people want to support that and support me. And I'm so grateful for that. And it just stems from being authentic and not being afraid of what people will say, because people always have something to say. But I don't listen to people that aren't in positions I wouldn't trade places in. And that's the key I've kept in my mind.
Did you always know that you're a premium barber, even when you were starting out?
That's a great question. I knew I had something different, but I didn't know it would be at the level it was at now, truthfully. I knew from the start that I never rushed anybody out of the chair. And as I went through barber school and got around other barbers, I realized there's people out there that can cut hair as work and cut hair and let somebody leave without giving it their all because the time's up. To where when I noticed that, that's when I knew I had something special going, just with how my mind operates and how I view barbering. I have some perfectionism, and that plays into a strength. Sometimes it could be a flaw, but ultimately I view it as a strength, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. That's something that I was thinking a lot about is I think you have to be the person that you know you are for a while before you become that person in other people's eyes. I think your skills were improving, but your attitude and your perfectionism and just you wanted to create this amazing service was always there, but you didn't have the proof yet, right? So like as time goes on, you implement different things, you get more reviews, you get more people to cut hair, you start to kind of shift into the person you always knew you were. And the reason I've been thinking a lot about this is because I've gotten so unfazed by people's comments. I take the good comments I always really appreciate, but the bad comments I never seem to care too much anymore because I've spent so much time doing something that's taken so much work that people don't see to the point that I am becoming the person that I want to be. And when I become this person, right? Who knows if this is going to be the rest of my life kind of thing, but I'm aiming towards this goal. And since I've spent so much time working on my own things, thinking about it, the people that spend 15 seconds hating on me, the 15 seconds to say something that doesn't make any sense really doesn't affect me because I am fundamentally the same person that I was. I think I heard Gary Vee say this, and this is not in the same context, but as an author, I'm going to say, I think you're a best-selling author before you become a best-selling author. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, you have to take on the identity as somebody who is this ideal goal and adapt it before you become it. Because in order for you to become that thing, you have to do the actions that align with it. And to do the actions, you kind of have to be that person.
Yeah. So the thing that comes to mind is there's two versions of ourselves. There's the idealized version that you're talking about, and then there's our current version of ourselves. And the way I look at it is how do I bridge the gap between these two versions? If I can figure out how to bridge the gap between these two versions of myself, then I can become that idealized version. And it takes reflecting and self-awareness, but figuring out what does this idealized version of myself look like? How does he talk? How does he dress? What are his daily habits? And how does that align with the life and if there's any difference or things that need to be improved, okay, now it's time to work on improving on. And you can become that idealized version a lot quicker than you may think. And kind of how you were saying earlier, you just may not have proof yet because you start making these changes. The day you decide to step into that new version is the day you become that version. Now you're just waiting on other people to see it and acknowledge it. All right, guys, I finished the cut. I'm about to show you guys the results right now. And then after I show you guys the results, we're going to go back to the couch and finish the conversation. So here's the cut. Got him dialed in, got him crispy, got his tapers blurry. So as far as business goes, I've found that whenever I work too much inside of the business, there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of go, 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 and it seems productive. It seems like I'm making progress throughout it, but ultimately I'm just going through the motions. I think there's a lot of times you can be caught up in the motions and the go, go, go and grinding, that we could be grinding, but not realize we're slightly off course, to where whenever we're slowing down, we have more time to reflect and analyze and make sure, are we directly on target and on path, or do we need to slightly correct?
Working on the business allows you to kind of get a bird's eye view more and see like what needs to happen in place. And that's something that I got to think about more as far as things that I'm doing. Cause I put like a lot of reps in at my podcast episodes. I do my emails for my book, etc. Right. So sometimes I lose track of the long-term vision on how you think about things or is going to impact your results that you get. So for example, you said you joined the mentorship program and then your thinking expanded. So in the same way, I think there are things in life that we can think about that will expand how we see things. And this is one of them where it's like, instead of saying, okay, I got to get 8 cuts in today, you say, wait a second, I'm going to take half of the day to think about what is the one thing I can do right now that'll generate me, I don't know, X amount of money, or just something that frames it from a bird's eye view as opposed to like you're in there, you're doing the work, you're putting in the reps.
Yeah, 100%.
If you want to do the traditional path, right, you go to high school, you get into a good college, you get into a good job, and I think it's the path is already cleared so much that it's like, okay, I go to this networking event, and I talk to this amount of people. I get their LinkedIn's, then from there I reach out to them. Then I get a call from the recruiters, internships. From there I get a full-time job, and then I work up the ladder. It's like it's very predictable. But then for people like us, I think where a lot of doubt comes in is it's like, are we crazy for doing this? You know, that's what I think. It's like, okay, I've had 100, 40 podcast episodes. Am I crazy for thinking that I'm gonna make something out of it? You know, am I crazy for thinking that I'm gonna build this all with my own hands and like it's all working? Because I'll tell you, one of the problems as well is a lot of people see somebody like my guests will see, they're like, I love what you're doing, stay disciplined, it's all gonna work out. And like it sounds really good in the long term. I look at it and I'm like, okay, like this thing is working out. I'm getting small proof along the way. But then in the short term, that day to day, I'm like, dude, like, is it gonna work out? You know, it's like I can have all of these people telling me these things, but if I don't believe it, it's like it doesn't matter, which is another really good lesson for life.
I love that. I resonate with that because you were kind of saying how some of these people would tell you, just stay disciplined, keep at it. Like maybe it's only a matter of time. Like you're going to be successful. Like you may not feel it or know it, but you're going to be successful. And I think it's easy to tell somebody that if you see them locked in or on the path. But it's also hard to believe it, fully believe it in the moment, I think, sometimes.
Yeah.
So where there's all the controllables you're trying to control, because in my mind, I've had people tell me, like, you don't got to worry. You're so young. Like, you're going to be successful. Just because the way you think and the way you're operating now, like, you're going to be successful. But in my mind, I'm like, not necessarily, because if I stop, then I won't be.
I think
I have to upkeep every standard. I have to continue to elevate and grow to where, like, putting that pressure.
Yeah, I think that's where the pressure comes from as well, where we're like, we get so involved in the day to day, and then we start overthinking, and we're like, oh my God, like, yeah, but if I stop right now, it's all gonna fail and all this, and then we put the pressure on ourselves. So, okay, now I gotta work, and then from that, the cycle repeats where you hit a point and you just take a step back, and you're like, okay, this isn't serving me anymore. But then you get more doubt along the way, and you work harder, and it's like this cycle that keeps going. So
yeah, I love that. And that cycle, I think I've been able to, sorry to cut you off. I think that cycle, we're able to slow down or break possibly by slowing down, by that bird's eye view, by reanalyzing and reassessing everything to make sure everything's aligned, because then we can stop.
I guess if you break the cycle, you can stop the things that you know are going to happen. Like if you know you're going to get exhausted from working too much, you break the cycle and you never have these things to begin with.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I agree with you. Like on such a deep level, it's so difficult. And that's also one of the reasons I'm super happy we're doing this. Cause I think we'll look back on it 5 years from now. You're going to be doing your thing. I'll be homeless or something. No, I appreciate it. But yeah, that's one thing I think I find a lot of value in is like along the way. It's cool that I get to talk to some cool people, but I think it's things like these that are the most meaningful, where we're both growing. We're both like in different, I wouldn't say industries, different, we're at different parts, but the same parts kind of too. It's not like, I don't know how to describe it.
I was like, kind of like the same word, just like different fonts.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Yeah, because I just think, kind of like I was talking about earlier, I wish more people did it, and that's something that I always encourage. Like whenever I see people doing something, if they're starting a social media, I always give them as much encouragement as possible. And like that's what the world needs more of. We need more people taking risks. We need more people that are at least willing to try and fail if they need to. But we talked about this earlier. I don't know if it was recorded, but failure is not as bad as people think it is, and it sucks. But the failure and the embarrassment is what gets you to your result. I was talking about my door-to-door that I was doing over the summer. It was the most embarrassing thing to go up to somebody's door. I mean, like, I'm a 20-year-old dude. I'm in college. I got treated like a nobody. People hated me. People slammed their door. People swore at me. So when you fail like that, when you have a day that you literally don't get treated like a human, it's like the only choice is to bounce back or to die, quote unquote. Obviously not die, but like to fall. And I remember there was days like my dad, he reminds me as well, but there were days where I'd come back and I'm so tired and I'd literally be sweaty and my mood would just be ruined because people treated me so bad. You know, it gave me so much empathy, first of all, for door-to-door people. Like those failures in the long term are some of the biggest like guiders. I reread the Alchemist. I don't know if you've ever read it before, but
No.
It's a really good book. It's like a fiction book, but a big part of the book is like omens. Omens are like good luck fortunes, like good luck things. So for example, like if you're spiritual, you might believe that a butterfly is a good luck signal. So like, let's say you're on a bike ride and you don't know if it's safe there, and you see a butterfly and you're like, oh, it's a good omen. Like it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So in the same way, I think about the fact that like in the long term, these failures you can't see are going to be the reason that you succeed, and they're the omens. Like, you have to hit this low point in order for you to not be afraid to do whatever it takes. Like, for me, coming home exhausted and tired was so difficult that it made me so motivated to want to just do something special, whatever it may be, right? Yeah.
I think that's very interesting, and I agree with you. The way I have this on my whiteboard at my house, and I ask God to break me and to reshape me and rebuild me into the man He's called me to be. That's all the failures, all the tribulations, that's the embarrassment, the people hating. All of those things are building that character you need to sustain and uphold your next level.
Yeah.
To where I also view, kind of backtracking, I view the negative feedback or the hate as positive. If you're doing something right and it's needed, you have to go through that to build certain character. Because if you, for example, a lot of lottery winners, people that win the lottery, if they were poor and they win the lottery, they're probably going to be poor again. If they were rich, they won the lottery, they'd probably be able to maintain it and create even more wealth. And it's because of the mindset and the habits they have. They haven't created the character, the habits, and the discipline yet to be able to sustain that amount of money. And you have to continually build your character to make sure you can sustain that next level. So that's how I look at it, is like God's just shaping me into the character I need, to where no setback, no failure is ever a bad thing. It's part of the journey. And I think having that mindset allows me to push through further too and not get discouraged, because I see it as, oh, this is a learning moment. This is a crucial turning point. Like, yeah, it might suck in the moment, but the only way is up from there. Typically doesn't get worse if you can learn from it.
Yeah. I also think that's such a useful thought as well. Like, if you just think about the idea that, okay, for you, it's your faith that God has a plan for me, it allows you to be able to endure more because you believe that it's going to lead to something else, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's also another good testament to like doing things that are bigger, doing things for the reason of like something being bigger than yourself, right? Even for me, like if I experience some difficulty and I'm doing something for my parents, I'll be like, okay, listen, like my parents did XYZ to get me here, and like, oh, they've sacrificed so much, and if I was to quit now, I wouldn't be able to see what I could achieve. I don't know about you, but that's one of the scariest things for me, is falling short of what I could be. You know, it's like laying in your deathbed, and I've heard this example before, but like you lay in your deathbed and then God shows you who you could have been. So that's like
Yeah.
the scariest thing for me.
I agree. I do think that's scary. And I think that honestly is a thought that crosses my mind sometimes whenever I feel myself getting more lazy or comfortable or complacent. I think I've recently tried to slow down in life instead of being so go, 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 so I can have a better assessment on what direction I'm going instead of being so fixated on the motions. But within that, I also struggle because I fear I'm falling behind. I'm not being as productive as I need to where I have shame or guilt watching a movie, like watching a TV show, like playing video games, whatever it is. Like if I'm not working or being productive, I have shame and guilt for not doing more. But I think that's to backtrack what I was saying about control versus surrender. That's myself trying to like white knuckle myself through life with my ambition and create the reality I want. I think it still requires inputs, it requires hard work, but yeah, ultimately I think God's just guiding me. Because if I'm reflecting back, there's so many doors that opened and doors that closed that made no sense for me at the time. I did not understand. Sometimes I was hurt and I was just confused, but then later I understood. I try and keep that mentality, kind of with the setbacks and failures. I might not understand why I'm going through this in the moment, but I know later I will understand and God will show.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting. Like, I wonder if you take your mindset compared to other people, you can like correlate whether the result justifies it. Because for you, like, I love the idea that you're letting God, you know, dictate, run your life, essentially, if you will, I guess, point you in the right direction. But through that, you've been able to achieve some pretty cool things, you know, but it's also because you have a really good mindset about it too. Like, some people might say something similar to where like God's guiding me, or like I'm getting these signals, but they don't really follow them. Like, it's kind of counterintuitive that people say that. Like, I feel like a lot of people repeat these same lessons, but don't follow them themselves.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think just within like faith and I'll just say Christianity, like ultimately I don't really like to dive deep into like religion or anything like that. I just like to I believe in Jesus. But within that, a lot of people have this negative connotation of if you believe and you're a follower and you're trying to let God lead your life, you can't be ambitious, you can't be driven, you can't hit these goals, you can't be successful. And I think there's a lot of people out there that this is going to be controversial and a hot take, but I think they cling on to that as a way to remain comfortable.
Interesting.
And complacent. I think there's a lot of good heart posture of spreading the word and creating disciples. And I think that's needed. But we're also called to have diligent hands to take care of our family and the generations to come. To where if we have to take care of the generations that come after us, that's a lot of wealth we have to accumulate. We can't do that doing no ordinary thing. So we have to get out the box, get to work. And I would say I'm trying to let God lead my life, but it takes me to execute. He'll put thoughts in my mind. He'll place things on my heart and he'll open doors for me. But if I'm sitting still being lazy, nothing's ever going to get done. Those plans aren't going to come to fruition. And then I'll be on my deathbed thinking, dang, like this is what I could have been if I just listened to God. So I think that's my fear. But I've also found that me trying to control my life, if I control it and try and get myself to where I want to be, it's not going to be anything comparable to where God has in store for me. I think he has something far greater that I can't even see. And as I walk more in obedience, it just kind of reveals itself more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder with the whole ambition thing. Like, it was interesting you brought up that a lot of people will kind of use it as an excuse to be lazy. Because I think people do that in all facets of life, whether they are religious or not. But I don't know. It's interesting for me because like this is the way I think because I'm kind of like I've been programmed to just based on like conversations I've had, etc. But I wonder what other people would say about that. Because I totally agree with you. But I think some people wouldn't have the heart to be able to admit it. I think they would make up some type of excuse as to why they're not taking action. It's like, oh, and maybe they're not taking action because I haven't had enough proof yet that this is the right thing or et cetera, whatever it might be. But yeah, it's interesting. It's actually, I think it's super cool how we are, like, I'm not really religious, you're religious, but we have very similar opinions on things. I think that's one of the beauties of life. And that's something that even, like, one of the reasons I wanted to write my book as well was because there's so many amazing conversations to be had, and people shy away from people that don't have the same opinion as them. But in reality, we're all human and we kind of all want the same thing. We just want to make sure everybody's safe, to have enough money to live a good life, you know? I wish more people were open to the idea of having a conversation with people that might not have the exact same thoughts, because within those not exact same thoughts are a lot of the same beliefs, a lot of the same like principles, we'll say. Because same thing for you, like you believe in something bigger than yourself, and I do too. It's just we believe in different things, you know?
Yeah.
But as long as we do things that suffice to us, you know, contributing to some type of success, whatever we consider success, I think it benefits both of us and it does us no harm knowing that you live in your own world and I live in my own.
Exactly. I think there's a lot of benefit and value in being able to have those conversations.
Yeah.
So where two people might not have the same belief, but still being able to sit down and have a conversation without escalating it into this big ordeal or this big scene. I honestly think that's another thing a lot of believers fall into, like another controversial thing. But sometimes believers can be so pushy.
Yeah.
And they're hitting brick walls, and it pushes people farther away rather than bringing them closer, which is doing the opposite of what their intent is. So I think there's just so much value, and there's a lot of core principles that are similar, and being able to resonate and connect on those levels, I think is important, despite there being a difference. But also backtracking onto making excuses, like even if it's outside of religion, like it could be somebody having an injury, right? And then they're using it as an excuse to slip on their diet.
Yeah, guilty of that.
Like something like that. Like there's justifiables that are easy to cling on to for comfort. And I think it's all about playing the cards you're dealt. There's always going to be issues. Like growing up, a lot of people in my hometown have this perspective of me of I'm privileged, I'm fortunate. Like I was very fortunate financially with my parents. They took care of me. We didn't have to worry about bills, food on the table. Very blessed to where there was maybe some people that didn't have that. But everybody always has their own thing that's going on, even if it's not the same as somebody else. Like I was in and out of the hospital my entire childhood. I've had 5 major concussions. I got diagnosed with juvenile amplified pain syndrome when I was 9, and I wasn't able to walk. I was in a wheelchair. I was being pushed around in a wheelchair or crawling my way to the bathroom. And that's one of my most troubling times. But that's something I can call on to for strength to push through whenever I don't feel like I can, because I'm blessed I can walk right now, but not dwelling in all these bad things that happened to me. Instead, I'm playing the cards I was dealt. How can I move forward? How can I make the most of the life I have? to where I think there's two mindsets on it. You can go that way and make the most of the cards you're dealt, or you complain and you dwell and you sit in the cards you're dealt because you think it feels good by just complaining about it and using it as the justifiable or the excuse. But ultimately, you're just sitting and rotting in it to where like you could do so much good. Another analogy I think of is there's these two brothers that have an alcoholic father. And one of the brothers sees his alcoholic father growing up, and that's the role model he has, and he clings on to that lifestyle, and he ends up being homeless and he's alcoholic, and that's the life he lives, and it's sad. The other brother sees it as motivation and fuel to be nothing like his father, and he becomes a very successful entrepreneur or a businessman, and he makes the most of his life and has a happy family with kids, to where their situation, their upbringing, their environment was the same, but their mentality was different. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say you're somebody that I think has a lot of empathy and has a lot of gratitude for the things they have. Like, you really appreciate what you have going on, which I really admire about you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask, do you think that your experiences from earlier in your life with all the problems you had growing up contribute to you being grateful for what you have right now?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with my girlfriend the other night of something I reflect on and think about is like, if I'm able to get up and walk, like that's a blessing. Like
Yeah.
I can make the most of it because at one point I wasn't able to. And a lot of times I found we don't realize how blessed we are with something until it's taken away.
Yeah.
And that plays into my gratitude a lot.
Last question here for you. How do you think people can learn to not let their circumstances and what things are happening to them excuse them for bad actions or behaviors?
That's a very in-depth question. I'm going to try my best to answer.
Yeah, take a second. Because, like, you could have easily been the kid that says, oh, listen, I had concussions growing up. This isn't for me. Or, like, I had this thing. I couldn't walk. Who cares? Like, I'm just going to sit and play video games. But you really took charge of. That's one thing, like I was even saying earlier, I really admire about you is your appreciation for life, because I wish more people understood how valuable life is. And it's interesting because you talked about somebody that might have a little bit more of a cynical approach, or maybe they think their life is worse. And they say, oh, look at Larry, he was born he had a silver spoon in his mouth. He always had food on the table. And they let this one thought lash into different areas of their life and make their life worse. Like, yeah, okay, you had food on the table, but you had health problems growing up. But then when it comes to their health is perfectly fine. But because they don't like take any action, because all they're doing is worried about you, their health diminishes as well. And while they're like complaining about their entire life and everything gets worse, and again, not all people, like obviously people have their health problems, but I'm saying for the cynical person that lets the world control them, it's like they let this one good thing somebody else has shape their life without taking into account all of the things this person could have potentially had to deal with.
Yeah, I think just on that topic of the cynical person, of understanding everybody has their own complex life they're living, and everybody's life looks different. Everybody has their own battles daily. Everybody has their own daily battles, their daily struggles. Let alone the big struggles and the big tribulations they face throughout their upbringing and just their life. I think having that awareness creates more empathy for people and can take away that mindset. But kind of back to the big question, I think it's something I still don't know how to perfectly navigate properly, because sometimes I could fear I'm not processing things fully, to where it's a fear that maybe it comes up mentally later, because my approach so far has been suppression, pushing it down, avoiding, forgetting about it. Because my approach right now is when something bad happens, or when something doesn't go your way, or it's not ideal, instead of sitting in it and dwelling in it, I don't reflect on it much. Like, I reflect to try and learn from it, but I don't dwell. But I'm not processing it fully. I'm just like, okay, this isn't what I want. Shift my focus to what I do want. So I'm hyper fixated on what I want and how to optimize and how to learn, that I don't even give it brain power, brain thought on the negatives. Like, I don't even give it a thought, to where I think there could be a con of it could come up later if it's not mentally dealt with.
Interesting.
But right now, it serves me well of only focused on the positives, only focused on the controllables. If I can control something, why would I dwell in it? Because I'm exerting that brain energy on something that I can't control or change. I look at that as wasted. To where if I focus on what I can change and what's positive, that seems beneficial.
And I think that there's so much overlap there, like in the way that you think and the results you've gotten, there's so much overlap. And like nobody who would be in your position with how much you've done with your business would ever have a different approach. Like there's no way you can achieve what you've done with the mindset of like, oh, this thing happened to me. All right, guys, listen, I can't work for 5 days. I can't do this. Like this is like, that's what it takes, right? So it's super interesting. It's another part of ambition we're kind of talking about as well. Last thing I'm going to leave, I guess, you in the audience with is I had Matt Levin on my podcast. So he's a CEO of a huge company. He's been a CEO of like a couple $1 billion companies. And I was telling him, like, you seem like a very empathetic leader. And he was like telling me, he's like, that's the best compliment you can give someone because he was given some advice when he was younger from a really like established professor. You want to be an empathetic leader because you never know what people are dealing with. But he said, I asked him, I was like, what's one thing that you could leave the audience with? What's one thing that you could leave us with in your experience that you wish more people would understand? And he said exactly what you said. Every single person, he said, I don't have to prove this to you. I guarantee you, he's dealt with thousands of people. Like he's at the top of the organizational ladder, right? He's like, every single person you interact with, every person you see, every person you observe has something going on. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to bring it up, especially if they don't know you. But if you start to see the world through that lens, everything changes because you start to realize that you're not the only one with problems. They always say like, what is it? Cognitive dissonance. Like somebody cuts you off in traffic, they're a douchebag. But when you do it, it's because I was rushing to work.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. I don't rage at people on the highway for the same reason. They cut me off and I'm like, dang, I hope everything's okay. Yeah. So it's like having empathy is so huge because it allows you to understand that we are humans. I think that's what it is. Like you go around, you're living your own life. You can't imagine, like, I look at you, I'm like, I can't believe you're living your own life. You're not just part of mine.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's like,
yeah.
it's interesting, like when you start to see the world through the fact that, okay, you're living your own life, they're living their own life, we intersect, it's part of the beauty of life. But on top of that, everybody's got something they're thinking about. Again, it could have been more significant, like you talked about, somebody's parents could have died, or it could have been like they failed a test, so they're a little bit upset. So, treating humans from that lens, first of all, makes them never forget, but I think empathy is where so many people miss out on when it comes to like getting to know people. But dude, such a good conversation.
It was an
This is
amazing
awesome.
conversation.
For everybody listening, thank you for listening all the way. Larry, thank you for the cut, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Peace.